Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatang Vitang Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purijana Sahitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitangscha Om Jnana Timrandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurun militam jena tasmai Sri Gurave namaha Mukam karoti vachalam pangolang hayate girim Yat kripa tamahang bande Sri Guru dinatarinam Guru Gaura Gandharva Govindang Gringanai Saha Bande Prasadato Yesham Sabaramba Subankara Gaura Vag Vigraham Bande Gaurangam Gaura Vaibhavam Goro Sankirtanomatam Goro Korunya Sundaram Guru Rupa Harim Gauram Radha Ruchi Ruchavritam Nityam Nomi Navadipe Nama Kirtana Nartanai Srimad Prabhu Padam Boja Madhupebhyo Namo Namaha Ananda Lila Maya Vigrahaya Hemavadivyaschavi Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Yes, some questions?
Maharaj, There is a question from Purushottam Prabhu, Salt Lake City.
Hare Krishna.
Recently I was reading the little booklet Bhagavad Darshan by Srila Govinda Maharaj. In that book there is one paragraph in particular that grabbed my attention. The light effulgence that comes from Krishna Loka and permeates the spiritual world is Brahma Loka, the entire area of spiritual existence. We must try to take the knowledge that Shukadev Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srimad Bhagavatam have given us and dive deep into that reality. Preaching comes automatically, but this subject matter is not for preaching. It is a transcendental fuse that connects the mundane to the transcendental world. Two waves are flowing. One is this material world, which flows by a cyclic system, and the other is the free-flowing transcendental world. In particular, what does Govinda Maharaj mean by, quote, this subject matter is not for preaching, unquote? And would you kindly explain the fuller purport of these two paragraphs in general? Thank you, and Dandavats, Purushottam Das, Salt Lake City.
Well, I think Srila Govinda Maharaj is speaking from a deep position of spiritual realization, divine vision, depth. So sometimes when he says this is not for preaching, he means to say, like, for those who have no prerequisite understanding of Krishna consciousness, when you start talking about Brahma Loka, Krishna Loka, that means someone knows something. They've heard, Brahma Loka means something to them. Right? They can distinguish between Brahma Loka, the planet of Lord Brahma, and Brahma Loka, meaning the Brahma Jyoti, the spiritual effulgence. So we're talking about some prerequisite understanding. They can, like he's speaking primarily to a group of devotees he's sharing this with, so he may say, that is not for preaching so much, meaning the man on the street, so to speak. The starting point for them may be like Atma, Gyan, Atma Tattva, understanding the difference between the body and the soul. Like Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada was like hammering this for 10 years. You're not the body, He's hammering this over the heads of, he's personally reading Chaitanya Charitamritam, the Srimad Bhagavatam, so many things, but he's hammering this to the people. You're not this body, you're spirit soul. So, it's like in St. Petersburg, Srila Govinda Maharaj is in a particular mood to quote some verses from the Gita Govinda. And he said, this is like, and he's saying, but it should not be explain. This is confidential literature. So then what to do? He's saying like, oh, I will say the Sanskrit without any explanation. So what did he say? Good for speaking, but not for telling, or something. So like I can sing this, Lalita Lavanga Lata Parishilana Kamala Malaya Samire Maru Karabi Karakaramita Ko Kila Kujita Kunja Kutire. And that's it. Safe. But so that spiritual world that he's describing, right, that is revealed truth. When he says we should understand what's given by Sukadev, the Bhagavatam, and Mahaprabhu, right, Brahma Sangita. Right? But where is the starting point for theistic culture? Right? We know Srila Guru Maharaj tells the story of when he was preaching in Karachi, and after he gave his talk, some man came up in the end and he said, if the finite can know the infinite, it's not infinite. Right? And that's true, actually. Saying, like Guru Maharaj himself, we'll hear him say later, no amount of finite equals the infinite. So that means no realization, not the realization of Newton, nor Einstein, nor Stephen Hawking will even remotely approach the infinite. Right? So, and he's saying, if the finite can know the infinite, meaning by finite means, that's not the infinite. Right? What is, I say, Yam Shama Sundaram, what is that Shama? Achintya Gunaswarup, an inconceivable divine form, inconceivable color, inconceivable shape, but parallel for, what is it? Shaka Chandrika Nai. The logic of showing a moon through the branches of the tree. I want you to see the moon. You go, where is it? All right, you see that tree? Yeah, follow the trunk. Yeah. See the branch on the right? Follow out. See at the very, oh yeah, there I see the moon. The branch, that's not the proof. It has little or nothing to do with the branch, but it's a convenient relative, what do you say, object within our relative experience I can point to and then say, see that? At the very, there, it's there at the end. That's a way. So, Achintya Gunas Rupa, and his Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela, what does it mean? His pastimes, Leela, divine play. So Rupa Goswami says, Atak Sri Krishna Namadi, Na Bhavyed Grahyam Indriye. Indriyas means senses. I always remember this one lecturer, Prabhupada. He's sort of lost in Sanskrit, and he's talking about go and govind. He says, go means indriyas. I'm like, oh, okay. I realized, oh, he just taught us Sanskrit. Go means indriyas. And he says, indriya means senses. Seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, feeling, and the mind. So it's very peculiar. In this verse, he's saying, and it's about the name of Krishna and the form of Krishna, the qualities of Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna. And he's saying, they're beyond your experience. So they think like, oh, okay, I give up. Right? Why should we even try? Right? Saying it's beyond the limited experience of your mundane sense perception. Remember Blake and his statement, if the doors of perception are cleansed, then we will see everything as it is, infinite. And I suggest that means then there's infinite, the beauty infinite, the sound infinite, taste infinite, touch infinite. This is now become a very exciting proposition. Right? But what is necessary? The doors of perception have to be cleansed. What are the doors of perception? The senses. Go means indriya. Right? They have to be cleansed. Of what? Of acquired prejudice and acquired tendency. Right? And taking a limited view of the limited and trying to extrapolate the unlimited or the infinite from there. Right? That makes no sense. Right? The finite. If the finite can know the infinite, it's not infinite. So what the man said was half true and seems to be in line with what Rupa Goswami is saying. He's saying, yes, by your sensory ability and capacity, you cannot hear the name of Krishna. You cannot vibrate the name of Krishna, see the form of Krishna, understand the qualities, what to speak of the pastimes of Krishna. Right? That's half of the verse. But then Guru Maharaj's answer to that man, if the infinite cannot make itself known to the finite, it's not infinite. That's very beautiful. It's so, but the way Guru Maharaj told it, he said, and then I turned and said, if the infinite cannot make himself known to the finite, he's not infinite. Like, see ya. End of discussion. Think about that. These two famous, self-described atheists in the modern world, Christopher Hitchens, Martin Amis, they're two writers, contrarians, etc. So Christopher Hitchens is the favorite atheist of many theists. They like him. Things he says makes them sharpen their argument, their thought, etc. And really, I believe he's a closet Krishnite. But of course, I believe everyone is, but particularly him. But anyway, his friend, the two of them, every step of the way, mirrored their atheistic interpretation of things. Right? There's really, the competing narrative is the theistic, atheistic, agnostic, these competing narratives, different interpretations. But once his friend said to him, he said, Martin Amis said, look, in the infinite, we may not believe this, but in the infinite possibilities of things, we can't deny, right? We don't believe it, but I mean, in the infinite possibilities, we can't deny. And he said, no, you don't say that. And I know why he said it. He said, because if you may not believe it, but if you allow for that possibility, then actually, in one sense, you're just a theist with some extreme doubts. You're not really an atheist, because you're allowing for, and what is that possibility? That the infinite, by infinite means, can make itself known to the finite. So the finite, by finite means, what are the finite means? Seeing, hearing, tasting, our senses. Sensory inefficiency, Prabhupada wrote in his book. In Chaitanya Charitamritam, chapter 7, Adi Lila, Brahm Pramad, Vipralipsha Karna Patava. I believe it's a quote from Jiva Goswami saying, what's the difficulty? What our difficulty is we commit mistakes, like to err is human. Our senses are imperfect. We have a cheating tendency, and I always forget one. Illusions, right? Deluded, mad, So, so the limitations, imperfection of the senses, they're instruments that are they're not giving perfect readings, right? They have to be cleansed. The doors of perception. What is that? These are the doors. In the Bhagavad Gita, gates, gate, door, same thing, right? To, etc. Cleansed of acquired prejudice, acquired tendency, right? what we've acquired in the world of limitation, the non-Vaikuntha world. Right? Then so what does Rupa Goswami say? Guru Maharaj said, but if the infinite cannot make itself known to the finite, it's not infinite. So he's putting the prospect of this on the infinite. And what will be the means? Revelation. Amnai means divine revelation. That's the only way the infinite can come to know, the finite can come to know the infinite. So Rupa Goswami, the second half of the verse says, Atak Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhavyed Graham Indriye Sevan Mukhe Hijavaro Shayameva Spurtara. But through service, Sevan Mukata, if through a service connection, then there can Shayameva Spurtara. He may reveal himself. Right? Just as when we have so much apparatus here for giving illumination. Right? But if you take away the current, the same exact apparatus is there, but there's no illumination. So then where does illumination come from? It's a particular current. Right? That's why Guru Maharaj will talk about firing blank mantras. Right? You, like the starting gun of a race, they go, pfft. It sounds exactly like the firing of a bullet, except there's no bullet. It's just, it's a blank. Sounds exactly like the one with the bullet, but there's no bullet. That's why it's such a perfect example. Guru Maharaj saying, you're going, Hare Krishna. Sounds like the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, but does it have a connection with a serving spirit? Right. Sevan Mukhe Hijavaro Shayam Evaspurtada. So that world, it's what I find interesting in this is when Gurudev said it's like a fuse. The word fuse is what caught my interest. He's saying, so hearing these things can act as a fuse. And what does a fuse do? It connects you to this other plane when there's some major revelation. So he's saying, through the medium of divine sound, what you hear from Sukadeva Goswami, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and again, with greater intensity, from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is the ultimate revelation of that world that he said, hear from Sukadev, Bhagavatam. What does Sukadev say? Vedanti tat tattva vedas tattvam yajnanam advayam. There's one thing to know or understand. Einstein, one thing, the theory of everything. Right? The Upanishads, right? Yasmin vigite sarvam eva vigyatam bhavati. What is that one thing? There's this one thing you need to understand, and by knowing that you'll understand everything. What does Sukadev say? Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shavite. It's one, but can be understood in three aspects. Brahman, back to this, Brahman, Brahmaloka, the all accommodating spirit, right? Which is what? Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadandakoti. It's the effulgence of Krishna. Right? Like, people, they so often hear that the divine or the infinite is light, like unlimited light. And it's not untrue, actually. I've said this more than a few times, but particularly to our friends who, like, they fly to Chiang Mai, and very often from China, but it could be from anywhere else. And they come here at night. And so the pilot may come on the intercom and tell everybody, like, if you look outside the aircraft, that light you see off in the distance, that is the city of Chiang Mai. That's not untrue. It's true. And he's saying, you see that light? That's Chiang Mai. But, I mean, they wouldn't say, okay, now that we've seen it, let's turn around, right? No, they said, that's Chiang Mai. It's not inaccurate to say that. But that's not all there is to understand about Chiang Mai, any more than this divine, unlimited, all-pervading, overwhelming, joyfully beautiful, amazing, astonishing light is the infinite. Why stop there? Right? So, just like that plane, it goes further, then as it gets closer, if it goes deep into the light, like Guru Maharaj will say, in the Brahmaloka, there are so many gems to be mined from there. Right? Chintamani gems, slokic gems. Right? Parinirstitopi nargune uttama shloka lilaya grihita cheta rajarse akyanam yaraditavan. Sukadev's basically saying, I didn't know. Everyone knows me. I was never under the influence of the mundane. I was situated in the nirguna plane. So why did the hearing about Krishna and Radharani and Brajagopis have such an effect on me? It's very important that he says that. Right? So you go deeper into the light, start seeing form as when, it's similar to a pastime of Nard and Dwarka. Anyway, then you land in Chiang Mai and you see there's so many people, places, interaction, activity. Same thing, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So, in the case of Sukadeva Goswami, why Guru said he's the loudspeaker of the Bhagavatam? Right? Because he was, for all intents and purposes, a Brahmavadi. We're not going to say Mayavadi, that would be different. Brahmavadi. So he's totally spiritually realized, right? There's the gunas means tama, raja, sattva. Ignorance, passion, goodness. Then there's above that, then the lowest aspect of, the highest aspect of the mundane transitioning and the lowest aspect of the upper world. So Brahma. So he's situated in the Nirguna plane, in the outskirts of the Nirguna plane, you can say. And he's saying, and that's why everyone wants to hear from him. Why he's selected as the loudspeaker for the Bhagavatam. Because he's legendary, and it's understood. He's never had any interest in mundane eros, right? Eroticism. How do we know that? From the pages of the Bhagavatam. It's not incidental or peripheral, what Vyas includes there. When Sukadev leaves his ashram on the banks of the Saraswati and Vedavyas is running after him, we're told he goes past a pond of bathing Dibya Devis. Right? And when Sukadev, he was 16 years old, naked boy, goes past them, although they're bathing naked, they don't bother to cover themselves. Then when Vedavyas comes, the great Vedavyas, right, they're covering themselves. And Vedavyas, observing this, says, why for me you're covering yourselves, but not for him? And they're saying, we do not see even, a remote trace of the male gaze in his eyes. He does not look at the female form, even the naked female form, with even the remote male gaze of exploitation. And then it's not stated there, but then Vask is like, and me? What about me? I've written some books, spiritual books. I wrote the Mahabharata, compiled the Vedas, Veda Vyas. So, such a high certificate is given to Sukadev. Right? That's why it's included. It's necessary for that to be there. It's not just, an interesting story. Right? It's anecdotal, peripheral. No, it's central to why it must be him and not someone else. So now we've certified this person who's going to speak the Bhagavatam has no interest in mundane sensuality whatsoever, and never did. Not was and overcame that, never. Right? From when the womb of his mother, 16 years, comes out liberated. That's Sukadev. Right? And what does it say? Nigama kalpatrur galitam palam shukamukaram ritadrava samyatam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam mahuraho rasika bhuvi babukaha. So this Veda is Vedic like a kalpavriksha tree. Whatever desire you have, you can find its and there how to fulfill that desire. Really. Very subtle desire or gross desires. They'll also tell you, give you a path for, you say, I'm just totally riveted to, gross, mundane, they have a path for you. Right? It's all there. But where is it? So there's so many branches. As I've mentioned, that like when you look at a tree, there's the trunk, and then you see so many branches, and some branches are the exact opposite of another branch. There's one branch over here, one branch over there. Same thing with the Vedas. Right? But, and if we understand this metaphorically, that means you may see things that appear to contradict one another, because one's saying go this way, another one going that way. But just like the mango tree, there's one trunk, and then it branches out, and so many and sub branches, but it has one purpose. That's all you have to remember. The mango tree has one purpose: to produce mangoes. It doesn't matter which way the branches go. It only has one purpose: to produce mangoes. And as we're told here, Prabhupada's word, he likes to say, the fully ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic literature. So Vedic literature, it says, and there's this Veda and that Veda, and it's telling this and that, worship this, do this, don't do it, all of these things. But it only has one purpose, is to produce this fruit. So we're told, the kalpatru of Veda, the flowering, the floral essence of that tree is Vedanta. Right? And then as we see on the mango, the flower gives way to the fruit. And what is the fruit? Nigama kalpaturor galitam palam shukamukad amritadrava samyatam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam. It's this Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the fully ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic literature. Veda Vyas, he'd give Mahabharata, so many other things, compiled all these Veda, and he was like dissatisfied. He said, the giver of peace is not peaceful. Why? He's saying, oh my God, people are using this as an excuse for living in the material world. It wasn't his intention, but they think, oh, it's teaching me how to be dharmic, so if I behave in a dharmic way, then I can live here happily. So Narada is telling me, yes, then who will want to become liberated from this world? They'll think that the purpose of religion is for you to have a happy material life. Like, Like, that can't be. And they will quote you. They'll say, I learned this from Veda Vyas. Right? He said, so all these things you've done, they're just about the negative world. Right? Here, and when you live in the negative world, do this, don't do that, behave in this way, don't behave in that way. And so then you can go on living relatively peacefully, happily in the negative world. He's saying, so what you must do is tell them about the positive world, that they have an integral part to play there with their actual identity. So the tree of Vedic literature gives the fruit. And what is that fruit? It's liquid, nectarine juice. What is it? Rasa. And what kind? Madhura rasa. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is saying this principle of eros, it originates in the origin of everything. That's where it's expressed fully and purely and perfectly. And that's what you aspire to. And trying to search for that sort of fulfillment in this negative, reflective world will only end in delusion and suffering. Right? So Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Brahman, that all-accommodating spirit, I've told, the extremes of the infinite. Paramatma, so greater than the greatest, all-accommodating. Paramatma, all-permeating, smaller than the smallest. Those are the extremes of the infinite. What's the central conception? The human-like pastimes. Reality the beautiful, the personality of Godhead. Where, infinite sight, sound, infinite beauty, infinite where you can have this sensual exchange with the infinite, unthinkable of unthinkable things. The next questions?
Yes, Maharaj, I have another question from one of our viewers.
Yes.
The question is, approximately 500 years ago, why did the Kali Yuga avatar Sri Krishna Chaitanya chose to descend in Bengal, in India? Was the cultural background of the time and place significant?
Okay, I see it's a series of questions. So that's one question. Mm-hmm. and paraphrasing Guru Maharaj, said, so he's saying, why did he choose to descend in Bengal in India? West Bengal in India. So Srila Guru Maharaj said, why do you play golf? And I'm paraphrasing him just to make it a little more. Why do you play golf on a golf course? Why? Because it's designed for golf. Right? It's simple. So India, it was designed for avatars and Krishna Lila and their descent in this world. It's designed, and they say how, like the cultural background. So when, it's a question of Sukriti, the Sukritivan, those who possess the, as you say, pious accumulation to appreciate these things. When people are marketing something, we could say, put it this way, why do they market their product to a group of people who, are most likely to appreciate it and purchase it? Well, the answer is within the question, because these are the people who are most likely to appreciate it and to purchase that product. So the same thing in the culture, and we wouldn't say India is in one sense a modern term. We're talking about a plane of reality where by sanskar, or birth. There are people who are most likely to appreciate this and in a sense, purchase it and say, share that with others, right? So like, they'll say now, like when you buy something, so people who bought this also like this, and bought that. So understand, if you liked Ram Leela and you liked Krishna Leela, then you're going to love Gaur Leela. If you thought Krishna Leela was, so much sweeter than Ram Leela, but you thought, oh, it seems impossible to gain entrance there, then Gaur Leela is the Leela for you. Yata yata Gaura padara vindeta bhaktim krita punya rasi tatat tatot sarpati hridya kasmat radha padam boja sudam burasi. And the concluding section of the Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamritam, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami is drawing a comparison between Gaur Leela and Krishna Leela. Right? So then you would, just as a footnote, or you would think then, that again, as we told in the beginning of this talk, that the readers would have some familiarity with Krishna Leela, at least. Right? Otherwise, why talk to them about that? You're referencing Krishna Leela with the assumption that your audience knows what you're talking about. Where is that audience who knows about that? They're found in this place. So he's saying, Krishna Leelamrita Sar Tar Shata Shata Dar Das Dike Hoite Se Chaitanya Leela Hoy Sorovarakshoi Manasa Hangsa Charaha Tahate. It's very beautiful. And Srila Guru Maharaj when he'd quote these, he'd go, Govinda Maharaj likes this very much. And it says, Krishna Leela is what? Amrita Sar. That means, Amrita means nectar, Sar means cream. So it's saying, it's like the creme de la creme of nectarine substances. As alluded to in the first by Purushottam Prabhu quoting Srila Gurudev, saying, listen to Sukadev, Bhagavatam, Mahaprabhu. Guru Maharaj says, why is Chaitanya Charitamritam preferable or superior to an elite group? That as Bhagavatam is percolated by the realization of Sukadev, Charitamritam is percolated by Mahaprabhu, who's whom? Radha Govinda Militva. Radha and Krishna combined. That's what is unthinkable. That is who is Mahaprabhu. So if this is, in a sense, their version of the Bhagavatam, there's nothing superior to that. The combined, percolated understanding of Radha and Krishna, Hare Krishna. Right. So they're saying, so Krishna Leelamrita Sar, saying it's the creme de la creme of nectarine substance. When Guru Maharaj quoted the Vedas saying, Shrinvantu Vishay Amritasya Putra, you are children of the nectar world. Amrit, not Mrityu. Mrityu means the mortal world. Right? This world is, what does it say in the Bhagavatam? Yata jale chandramasa kampadis tatra guna, something. That as the moon reflects onto a pool of water, so the reflection, if you make the waves or make the water tremble, or right, it looks like the moon's becoming distorted. The moon is, nothing's happening to the moon. Right? That's this world. It's the reflective world. The soul is shining under the karmic circumstance. The body is the biological expression of the soul's delusion. Right? And what are the waves? The trembling, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, birth, death, old age, disease, these things. So, Srinvantu Vishay Amritashiputra, he says, the Upanishads are saying, oh, children, you're children of the nectar world, not of this world. And what is that nectar world? That's, as given in the Bhagavatam, the Krishna Lila. You have an identity there, a swarup, there, a part to play in those eternal pastimes of divine love. Right? But we've turned away from that and are busy with the reflection. Right? A perverted reflection of that plane, a perverted reflection of our identity. Right? So it says, if, and you thought Krishna Lila, we're told, it's reserved for the highest section of liberated souls. Not just liberated souls, but the highest section of liberated souls. You think, then what hope do we have to enter there? Saying, Chaitanya Lila is your hope. Chaitanya Lila is taking that unattainable, in a sense, divine nectarine substance and streaming it in all directions. That means irrespective of qualification. So you'll find your prospect in Chaitanya Lila. Yeah, so then it says, does Krishna care for all human souls? No. Krishna cares for all souls, whether they're human or all souls. Some souls are in the bodies of human beings, some souls are in the bodies of animals, trees, insects, jalaja, navar, lakani, stavar, lakavinshati. He cares for all of them, right? Not just human beings. Then it said, and if so, is that love conditional or unconditional? He's the unconditional absolute. So there's no conditions on that love. And non-judgmental. Dwa, Suparna, Sayuja, Sakaya. The example, like two birds in the tree, and we're back to Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So on the Paramatma level, it said like two birds on a tree. The tree is the tree of karma. One bird is the Jiva soul. The other bird is the Paramatma. We're told the Jiva soul is eating the fruits of the tree of karma in this reflective world. Right? And the Paramatma is the other bird accompanying the Jiva through all of this, non-judgmentally, just observing. You could say sometimes giving some hint or suggestion through conscience, but upadrasta anumantacha bharta bhokta maheshwara paramatmeti chapyakto dehesman purushapara. 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita about the Paramatma. Upadrashta means overseer, observer. Right? So think about that. Accompanying us at every moment. That's why no one is ever alone. Paramatma is always with us. And that's why when Krishna tells Arjuna, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna, because Arjuna said, wait, you instructed the sun god. Wait, that was like millions of years ago. How can that be? And he said, you and I have had many births, Arjuna. Krishna's births are called avatars. He said, I remember all of them. You do not. But what's imply is him saying, and I remember all of yours, and you do not. So it's that Paramatma who's accompanying us, in this case, knows us better than we know ourselves, right? And still is non-judgmental. And he says, what are the various ways for humans to get divine connection? So Guru Maharaj has an interesting aphorism. It says, according to the inner sincerity, earnestness, necessity of heart, one will necessarily come in connection with a particular level of theism and subsequent association. So it accommodates all religious systems and then all levels even within Krishna consciousness. You see. So what is it based upon? Your heart's inner necessity and inner sincere hankering for a connection with truth. That will be reciprocated. Right? That means you'll come in connection with a certain level of theistic conception and subsequent association. So, and does one have to convert one's cultural background in order to experience pure love of Godhead? Well, we have to remember, if we factor in this example about the reflection, what is our cultural background? It's acquired prejudice, acquired tendency. Back to Prabhupada hammering, you're not the body, you're not American, you're not Chinese, you're not, an Israeli, you're not a Russian, that is not the soul's idea. So cultural background, what is that culture? Culture acquired in the reflection world. What does Shakespeare say? Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow. So in the shadow world, there's nothing substantial there. Right? The culture of the shadow world, there's nothing substantial there. Right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Jayavidharma, what the natural condition of water is liquidity. When it's frozen and in terms of ice, then you can make certain observations about it in the frozen state. They're just temporary, they're not real or permanent characteristics. When it achieves its natural position, all of those things you observed in the frozen state are irrelevant. Okay. And in the prayers of Brahma, he says, Gyane prayasa mudapasam namanti eva. Stop trying to measure the infinite with your finite intellect. Remember, the finite, no amount of finite can produce the infinite. If the finite can know the infinite, it's not infinite. So Brahma, no less than Brahma, four-headed Brahma, saying, stop trying, I've tried with four heads. To measure him, what did he say? Stane stita shrutikatam. Whatever your position is, it doesn't, that means whatever your national identity, your gender, your historicity, the time, none of these things matter. He said, begin hearing omni, revealed truth from authorized agents of the Absolute. And then you'll come in connection with reality. And you'll be, whatever, so the Absolute can descend in relative circumstance. It doesn't matter what your relative circumstances are. And he says, does the Lord accept us here and now as humans? Does he love the human part of us? As I mentioned before, we're talking about the reflection. So he's saying, this perverted reflection of us, this biological expression of the soul's delusion in the form of this body, does he love that? No, because that's not you. Right? The moon shining on the pool of wonder, saying, the reflection is not of interest. There's no substance there. Right? It's the moon that is a substantial thing, right? Atma, the soul is illuminating the body. What does it say in another place in the Bhagavatam? When you see a cloud, right, that's covering the moon. And so it's the illumination of the moon that is allowing you to see the cloud. The cloud is not illuminating. Right? The moon is illuminating the cloud. So when you see a person, a body, you see eyes, you feel, you perceive some radiance, some presence. It's the soul, the Atma, that is illuminating that body. That's the substantial thing. The body itself, beauty is but a flower, wrinkles will devour. Brightness falls from the air, queens have died both young and fair. If we could do a time lapse on ourselves, we'd see the body is disintegrating in front of your eyes. It's growing for some time, developing, and then disintegrating. Right? So that shall not be the object of affection, right? Rather the soul. And I think, all right, yeah, that. And the human part of us, rather what we should redirect our thinking to the human-like pastimes of Krishna. Like in one place, it sounded like humanism, but Guru Maharaj quoted one poet where a Bengali poet said, man is higher than God. You think, what? That sounds like humanism, which Solzhenitsyn called the disastrous deviation of the Enlightenment, where they replaced God at being at the center with man at the center and made man the measure of all things and their value. So he said, the poem says, man is greater than God. But Guru Maharaj interpreting that, saying, Krishnera jateka kela sarvatam naralila naravaputara swarup gopavesh venukar navakishore natavar naralila hoyanarup. The human-like pastimes of divinity are superior to the majestic aspect of divinity. Right? Means the aprakrita lila of Krishna. It has human-like pastimes. And Guru Maharaj goes so far as to say this, they provide the template for human civilization. So again, we say this world is a perverted reflection of the original. In one sense, that is good news, because then that means what is here has a position there. Right? As we told, with reference to the deity Madan Mohan and the name Madan Mohan, and Sanatana Goswami being the Sambandha Jnana Acharya, why it shall begin with Madan Mohan. What does it mean? Madan, Cupid. We're told everyone in this world is under the influence of Cupid, right? So Madan Mohan means someone who is so beautiful that the way Cupid bewilders everyone, they bewilder Cupid. So we think, well, that's interesting. And so if we're under the influence of Cupid and we're being told the only way you can get release from that is through redirecting your attention, your attraction toward Madan Mohan. But Madan Mohan Krishna is equal to Madan or marginally more attractive or seductive than Cupid. What is Guru saying? Listen to Sukadev, Bhagavatam, Brahma Samhita. What does it say? Kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobham. How attractive is Krishna? Kandarpa koti. Kandarpa is another word for Madan or Cupid. Koti means 10 million. So if we can think of some time when we're under, say, the influence of Cupid, how intense that can be, right? And seemingly inescapable, right? Like a type of feeling of just being a slave to lust. Right? One Cupid can have that effect. So what is Brahma saying in the Brahma Samhita? Kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobham. Krishna, Madan Mohan. If you take that Cupid principle, Multiply that 10 million times. That's the seductive charm, beauty, and sweetness of Krishna. Then we think like, I'm gonna faint. One Cupid is too much, what we've experienced, and now you're saying multiply that 10 million times. Oh my God. Right? That's Krishna conception. Is God described like that anywhere else? No. Right? Only Krishna is described that way. Even, Narayan, Vishnu is not described that way. Only Krishna. And Gurudev said once very sweetly, like he could express some very high things in just very simple terms and just break it down in its most simplest form. He said, if you want to understand the difference between Vaikuntha Narayan and Krishna, then well, look at that Brahma Samhita. It says, Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sham Brahma Sevyamanam. So normally in the Vaikuntha world, which is unlimited, unparalleled opulence, right? It says, and you can see it on the cover of Prabhupada's Bhagavatams, where they have like, show the Krishna Loka, and then each Vaikuntha Loka, and on each Vaikuntha Loka, what do you see? There's one Vishnu, and Lakshmi and Narayan. One Lakshmi, one Narayan. But it's the unlimited Vaikuntha world. And Gurudev then said, what does it say in the Brahma Samhita? Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sam Brahma Sevyamanam. One Krishna, hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, trillions of Lakshmis. One Krishna. That's the difference in Krishna conception. And you think like, how can that one Krishna, and what do we find in the Bhagavatam? He's saying, and each gopi thought when they're having the rasa that Krishna is dancing with her and her alone. Vratyatra, when Mahaprabhu is dancing, then they think, oh, he's in our party. Mahaprabhu is only dancing with us. Hey, Prati Anga Lage Kande Prati Anga Mor. The Absolute can reciprocate every atom of every heart and soul, hankering simultaneously. And the Absolute can be nothing less than that. Right? That is the absolute personality of Godhead, Krishna, who even in this shadow world, this reflective world, sending innumerable avatars, appearances to do what? To reclaim the fallen souls, give them an opportunity by hearing about him or coming in connection with his pastimes. Stane stita shrutigadam. And that's what Brahma says. So whatever your position, it's very beautiful because he's including everything. Whatever your position, that means the time in which you were born, your gender, your nationality, none of these things are obstacles to the descent of the Absolute. The Absolute can descend into your relative circumstance through the medium of divine sound by hearing from his agents. Hare Krishna. Hari Haraya Namo Krishna Yadavaya Namo. Hari Haraya Namo Krishna Yadavaya Namo. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namo. Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Garadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath, Hey Jai Gochai Kori Charana Bandhan, Jaha Hoite Vignanash Abhishta Puran, Hey Jai Gochai Jar Mui Taro Das, Pansabara Padarinu Mora Panchagras, Kandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanevas, Janame More Abhilas, Hey Jai Goshai Jabe Braje Koilovas, Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korilo Prakash, Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan, Sri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman, Sri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas, Guri Nam Sankirtan Kohe Narottamadan, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Gaur Hari Bo, Nitai Gaur Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Gaur Hari Bo, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajaka Acharya Sattva Siddha Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Saparikar Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharva Govinda Sundar Ju Ki Jai. Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Go Bhaktabinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai, Shri Gupta Govardhan Ki Jai, Ganga Devi, Jamuna Devi, Bhakti Devi, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Om Vishnupad Vishva Varenya, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Madhacharya Vrinda Ki Jai, Jai Srila Bhakti Vimalavadup Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Lalita Devi Dasi Ki Jai, Seva Vrinda Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Go Premanande.
Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
And Bharat and Galats from Ajita Krishna Prabhu, Russia, Dhananjay Prabhu, Russia, Krishna Chandra Prabhu, Philippines. Gaura Shakti Prabhu, Adelaide, Australia, Harinamananda Prabhu, Colombia, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, London, Sahadevi Didi, Atula Krishna Prabhu and Madhavi Didi, Hungary,
Hare Krishna.
Aditi Nandana Prabhu, United Kingdom, Leela Sundari Didi, Australia,
Jai.
Haripriya Didi, Ireland, and Robert Grant.
And what?
And Robert Grant too.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Praneshwari Didi, Florida.
Yeah.
It's a Russian name. Helen Mitsko, maybe from Ukraine. Shripad Bhakti Vigraha Nyasi Maharaj.
Jai.
And Arjun Prabhu. I offer my humble obeisances to Srila Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Maharaj, asking for his blessings. To all devotees, please accept my dandavats. It's from Sevarupa David IC, Mexico. And Dhanjaya Prabhu. Dandavats to my Gurudeva and all devotees there. Dhanjaya Das and Chaitanya Mai, Rome, Italy. And the last Maharaj, Vigrahanyasi Maharaj. My Dandavat Pranam to Srila Goswami Maharaj is always most indebted for your kind service, transmission of the mercy of our beloved Guru.
Hare Krishna.
It was Shripad Bhakti Vigrahanyasi Maharaj.
All right.
That's
Very
Maharaj.
Good. And I'd like to give our Dhanavats. There's Madhavi Lata. Dandavat Didi, I assume in Holland, right? Right? Suresh Krishna Prabhu in Riga, Dandavat. Sevarupa Devi in, I don't know for sure, South Africa? All right. Vrajalatika. Yes, Vrajalatika in Russia and Orsk. Orsk? All right. Here. Arjun Prabhu, I don't know where he is. In Russia? Yeah. All right, Dandavat. Lalita Priya, Dandavat. Nityananda Das is here. Malini Didi, she's in Orsk also. Pandita, Dandavat. Sushmita, she's in China. There's Jai, Srila Bhakti, Ranjan Madhusudan Maharaj there with Manindra Mohan Prabhu. Chaitanya. Dandavat. They're at Vila Govinda. Chaitanya Nitai Prabhu and Vrindavan, my Dandavat. Aviram Prabhu, Dandavat. Indumukhi, she's in China, Dandavat. Lalita Priya, Dandavat. Sundari, oh, Dandavat. She's also in China. Hare Krishna. Ajita Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat. There's Paramananda Prabhu at Govinda Farm in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Somya Sham Prabhu and Oris, Dandavat. Rasananda Prabhu and Ukraine, Dandavat. Odarja Leela Didi, Dandavat. Damodar Prabhu, Dandavat. Kamalini, Dandavat. Chandrakanti, Dandavat. Anyone else? Ananta Shesh Prabhu in Spain, Dandavat. Prajabala, Sulakshana is here. All right, that's it. All right. And so we're speaking of the Kalpa Vriksha, the desire tree. We say Vancha Kalpa, Tru, Bryascha, Kripa Sindhu, and ocean of mercy, Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha, Patitanam Pavanevyo, they're Patita Pavana, saviors of the most fun. Patitanam Pavanevyo, Vaishnavevyo, Namo Namaha. My Dandavat pranams to everyone.